Hello, this is Mark here at Gary's Guitars in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I'm here to talk about today's provocative title, which is Guitar Dying? Last week I did a video called Is Live Music Dying? Because it was on my mind, and that just kind of led to this being on my mind, especially some of the comments, and I do enjoy and read the comments, comment on some comments, but I read nearly all of them, I think, as time allows. It helps me figure out, just take the temperature of the guitar playing audience and my audience here, and it's fun to interact with people. That's part of why I do this thing. So let's get into it. Speaking of comments, here's the reason that this pops into my mind. Is every few videos, when I especially when I do videos about the changes in guitar retail and how that's manifesting in the love of guitar, and someone will say to me, "Oh, it's easy, it's simple," which it's never simple, by the way. But hey, it's simple. The baby boomer generation is dying off. They love the guitar. They're not going to be playing guitar anymore, so that's why there's so many used guitars on the market. That's why no one's starting to play the guitar. That's too simple, and I think the guitar, just like live music, when we were talking about the live music video, someone's like, well, the people who used to go out to see live music don't go out to see live music anymore, therefore live music is done for. Well, we shouldn't necessarily depend on the 60 plus demographic to keep live music alive. Just like in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, or whatever, we weren't seeing 60-year-old people at shows. Therefore, young people, the responsibility of keeping music alive is with young people. So, back to the guitar. Is it dying? The idea that it's because the baby boomer generation's intertwined with the guitar and that they are giving up on the guitar, that now the guitar is done for. It's not necessarily a two-way street in that way. Now, the guitar is very important to the baby boomer generation and to America. It came around when the electric guitar, the loud guitar, came around at a time when the baby boomer generation was coming of age. And it kind of helped the post-war American and subsequently around the world rock and roll, rhythm and blues explosion. It helped it gain traction. A little sidebar here. Let's go back a little. I like talking about the cultural significance of the guitar to America and subsequently the world, which is that 60s generation, but also previous to that. If we think back to the 40s and the music of the 40s, there was just literal folk music, and there were big bands, essentially horn-driven music. Because to get loud enough to fill a room, you needed a bunch of horns. And the guitarist and the bass player were usually in the back, chomping away, playing as fast and hard as they could, and could barely be heard. Then came amplification. Then came Les Paul. Then came Leo Fender. And they invented these instruments that were, you could make them ridiculously loud if you wanted to. And that led, and I'm simplifying here, but let guitarists and bass players say, like, we don't need to stand in back of all these horn players. Let's stand out front. Let's be the band leaders and not the rhythm section. And that was a big part of the 60s guitar revolution. Was the guitar, the guitar made, simplified everything. It was a cheap instrument that it's the most democratic with a small d instrument. Everyone can do something with it. And people would get their hands on a guitar and figure something out. And they could make a band, an electric bass, an electric guitar, and some drums. And that happened over and over for tens of years, to this day, now that we're 70 years into the rock and roll era. It's wonderful. It's, my love of the guitar. The reason I sell guitars actually isn't because it's profitable, which we can argue about that. If you gotta sell something you love. So, there's a love of music and there's music sales, and sometimes we get a little confused when we talk about the music retail industry or the music instrument production industry having difficulty, and the an actual difficulty in the love of guitars and the future of guitars. And that's what brought this today's video about. Furthermore, as we get a little further into that, the love of guitar, stems from it's an easy way for people to interact with music, and still is. Even though keyboards can make, sequencers and stuff can make it easy, it's a little not as gratifying as wood and wire. So the guitar is it's an ancient instrument, really. The guitar as we know it, goes back hundreds of years, which doesn't make it ancient, but you know what I mean. It's a primitive instrument, and therefore easy to interact with, and people all over the world. And this is the most important thing when we talk about the millions of guitars being made annually. All over the world, people find a guitar and they like what they can do with it. And so, just as the Beatles made Japanese teenagers going, let's start a rock and roll band, now we have the guitar all over the world. And the demand for guitar is actually increased because the population of the world is getting bigger as well. So, when we talk about troubles in the guitar retail industry, we're not necessarily talking about troubles in the love of guitar, which I believe is alive and well. We have the cultural tie of the guitar representing to us as Americans and North Americans and let's see here. I guess people say Western civilization, but European descendants. So Oceania, North America, Europe. It's a especially close bond. But you take a step out of that, and the guitar is also popular worldwide with all sorts of cultures for some of the same reasons, and is one of the greatest exports of America. So, God bless the guitar. So, what is the future of the guitar? I think the future of the instrument is fine. That's why guitar is popular. That's why an industry has grown up around the production and sales of it. And even if these companies that sell them and these companies that make them might have difficulties in their corporate business models and such, it's just because they want to grow too hard and too fast and too all the time. Generally, it's up and to the right, I think, for guitar and guitar music. I do find young people are getting into it, not to the extent of like it's the only thing to do, but it's a very real thing to do, and it is a cultural thing. It is kind of passed down a little bit. And this idea of like, how about me, you, and this other person, we go in the garage and get guitar, bass, and drums and just see what we can do. And it's still happening today. I go to shows all the time where young people are playing guitars, and every generation does it their own way. It gets louder and quieter, and then louder and then quieter. Loud guitar bass music has can give you a feeling that gives you, I guess it's dopamine or something like that, but I don't know the biochemical reaction to it, but it does something. So I believe the guitar is not dying, even though, like I said, the big point that we made earlier of the generation that came of age with the guitar, the baby boom generation, is going to be less less interacting with the guitar in the guitar world. It's up to the young people to determine the future of the guitar. And I think that the future is bright. Is the word bright? Yeah, bright. I'm going to teach my son how to play the guitar if he hopes. I've given him a ukulele already. And hopefully, my dream is that my son meets up with some kids and starts a band. I always give your children a love of music, not so much that they don't want to have a real job, but a love of music. So, thanks again for watching. Comment on your take as well, because I do want to hear what you have to say about it, and that helps me make these videos in the future. And subscribe and like and all that stuff too. And see you soon.